Okay. Welcome to the new series we have on Srimad Bhagavatam, and we'll pick up from where we left off last time. But before we get started, we will recite the Mangalacharan Prayers, which are to the previous Acharyas, to Srila Prabhupada, to Lord Krishna, to Lord Chaitanya, to Srimati Radharani, for their blessings, so that we can understand these topics from our heart, not just from our ears and not just from our head, but even so that it penetrates into our heart. And these are present in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, as it is in the introduction chapter. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And since we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, which, the glories of which we understood or read last time, this is the Amala Purana, the topmost Purana, and is the literary incarnation of Lord Krishna himself, and has specifically appeared on this earth after the departure of Lord Krishna. This is the most wonderful scripture that is available to us. We will recite some verses which we always recite before any discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam. So we will. I'll share my screen. We recited these last time. It will be very nice to recite them again, or every time when we discuss Srimad Bhagavatam. So if you would like, you can recite along with, either on mute or off mute. It's either way is fine. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udiraya. Nashta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shlokir bhaktir bhavati neshtaki. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namah. And we will recite 3 times. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Okay. So, once again, welcome to all of you. We will start where we left off last time. And let's see. So we will take a quick detour. And last time we left, let's see, I'm trying to find very quick recap or a. So you can see this picture here, and this picture is of Sukadeva Goswami sitting on that chair or that Vyasa because he is going to represent Srila Vyasadeva. Any chair which is representative of Srila Vyasadeva is called as Vyasa, and a qualified person is allowed to sit on that chair and repeat the words of Srila Vyasadeva, who is the author of, or who put the Srimad Bhagavatam into writing. And there we see seated is Parikshit Maharaj, who is listening the Srimad Bhagavatam from him. So we'll take a slight detour. We left off last time. We said that the Srimad Bhagavatam starts more or less where the Mahabharata ends. And we heard how Ashwatthama, who was the son of Dronacharya, a very, very evil person, killed the 5 sons of the Pandavas, and then tried to kill also the last heir of the Kuru dynasty, which is Maharaj Parikshit, who was still in the womb of his mother Uttara. And of course, Uttara's husband is Abhimanyu, who is the son of Arjuna, and he had died in the Mahabharata war. So Uttara is a widow, but still she is carrying Parikshit Maharaj in her womb, the son Parikshit. And Ashwatthama tried to kill him by a Brahmastra. And then how he is saved by Lord Krishna. So we will see, or we will go into the details of that today. But before we go there, a slight detour I want to take, because this will be relevant as we make progress into the story today. So as you can see here in this picture, I'm screen sharing, right? In this picture, Sukadeva Goswami is speaking the Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. But there are all these other sages which are also sitting there and listening. They are taking advantage of this great conversation that is occurring between these two wonderful personalities. And they do not want to give up such a wonderful opportunity. You know, there was no recording at that time. There was no, like, I can replay, I can do any of those things. And this was the one and only opportunity when they could hear. And when two great personalities are meeting, you know, they want to hear every single word. So one of the sages, I don't know who in this picture. Now you can see, of course, Narad Muni is sitting here. He is also listening. And one of them is Vyasadeva. Among them, one of the sages' name is Suta Gosvami. And what happens there is that so this conversation, as you can see there's a river flowing. And of course, this is the Ganga river, Ganges. And this conversation is happening in a place called Shukratal. And one of the sages here is Suta Goswami, who is also yet another very, very, very a pure devotee of the Lord, very, very learned and very elevated soul. So he's also sitting there and taking advantage of this wonderful conversation that is happening. Then what happens is that after this whole 7-day conversation is over, now I'm kind of, you all probably know that this conversation went on for 7 days because Parikshit Maharaj was cursed to die in 7 days. We will hopefully get there today and we will see how he was cursed and all that. But after 7 days, he witnessed the departure of Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj was bitten by a snake and he died, or he left his body. Died as in the body died and his soul went into the spiritual world because he left his body thinking of Krishna. So he witnessed all that, and then he was sad because such a great king like Parikshit Maharaj had left this planet. And then he started his journey southward. He started going south. I'm not sure whether he was going towards a specific destination or he was just, spending his time just going through the forest, going from one place to the other. At another place, about 400 kilometers south, in a place called Naimisaranya, you might have heard the name, a very famous place in India. I actually have a little Google map here. Where is that? Did I not put it in? Right here. So I kind of tried to take the whole perspective of India so that you can see where we are talking about in the map. So those of you that are familiar a little bit with the geography of South Asia. So here is Shukratal, and down south is Naimisaranya. And so Suta Gosvami started walking down south. And there was a group of many thousands of sages in Naimisaranya that were about to perform a huge yagya, a huge fire sacrifice for the welfare of all people, because they knew two things, that Kali Yuga has started. And Kali Yuga started after the departure of Lord Krishna. And they also knew that the reign of Parikshit Maharaj has just ended. They don't know all the details, but they have got the news that something absolutely terrible has happened. Parikshit Maharaj was no ordinary king. We will see or hear today of his greatness. He was absolutely a phenomenally wonderful king. He was ruling like an ideal king, just like Lord Ramarajya, or like the reign of Yudhishthir Maharaj. Yudhishthir is Dharmaraj, was ruling in the most perfect way. And they had heard that something has happened and Parikshit Maharaj, our wonderful king, is no more. And there was like sadness, disappointment among everybody who heard that news. So they were going to perform that yagya. And then they see Suta Goswami arriving into that place, into Naimisaranya. And when they see Suta Goswami arriving, they are overjoyed. They are simply overjoyed because they know, or they knew, that Suta Goswami was there in that conversation, in the last conversation that Parikshit Maharaj was having with Sukadeva Goswami. So they knew those details, that some conversation was occurring, something has happened, but they did not know all the details. And these sages, so nicely, they welcomed Suta Goswami. They said, you have appeared here. You're a God-sent gift. It's a divine arrival. We are going to set aside our fire yagya. We won't do fire yagya anymore. So they just put that whole thing aside and said, now we will do a yagya of hearing, the Shravanam yagya. So please tell us, what happened at that place. So Suta Goswami then, to these sages, the head sage among that group was, his name is Shaunaka Rishi. So Shaunaka Rishi and all his other thousands of other sages, they sit down and start listening from Suta Goswami, and Suta Goswami is repeating everything that he heard in that conversation. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is repeated once again. So first time it was repeated by Sukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj, and the second time it was repeated by Suta Goswami, who was one of the audience in that first scenario, and then he is again narrating it to Shaunaka and the other rishis. They are known as Shaunaka Adi, Shaunaka and everyone. Like in English, we write et al, Shaunaka and others. So all these wonderful, this whole thing is happening all over again. So I just kind of showed you these two places. And here are some pictures. This is where, this is Shukratal, picture of, this is the near the present Muzaffarnagar district. And so this is the picture. This is another from another place. The picture, these are all on the banks of the Ganga river, the Ganges river. And then this is the tree under which it is supposed, again, we don't know, but there's a temple there. And, this is, the Bhagavatam was spoken 5,000 years ago. So, there's a temple here and things like that. And supposedly this is the tree under which Sukadeva Goswami sat down and spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. And then this is a picture of the Naimisaranya. There's a temple there as well. And it's in the Sitapur district near Lucknow in Uttar Pradesh, again about 400 kilometers down south. And there's another tree there. You can see some devotees. I took this picture from one, some, devotees had gone for a yatra. So there is a tree there. And supposedly this is the tree under which Suta Goswami sat down and spoke to the Shaunaka Rishi and others. So I just wanted to, share that little history of how the Srimad Bhagavatam is being passed on. One hears and then he speaks. Then they hear and then they speak. And like this, by repeated speaking, the Srimad Bhagavatam is being passed on from generation to generation. And of course, Vyasadeva committed it to written form, as we see and know. And, here, we have the 18 volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam among 12 cantos. This is the first one which I'm holding in my hand. If any of you want it, we can make it available to you. The price for all the 18 volumes like this, about this thick, 18 volumes, is $225 in English. And it's available in other languages as well. Many languages, Telugu, Tamil, and many, Marathi, Gujarati, Hindi, so on and so forth. So, we can read Srimad Bhagavatam like this, hear Srimad Bhagavatam like this. Okay, so that was a little bit of a detour, and I'll share with you why this is important from a contextual standpoint. So let me see where I need to go next. Okay, we come here. And okay, so back to the story of Parikshit Maharaj. So now we transition into the birth of Parikshit Maharaj. If you remember, last time we left it at the place where Ashwatthama had thrown, or he had fired the Brahmastra, the most deadly weapon that he knew, and against Uttara, who is the mother of Parikshit Maharaj. And now we will pick up from there. So let me share my screen again. And you can see here, this is one picture that I had that we had seen last time, that Parikshit Maharaj was being saved by Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna entered into the womb. So this is, though this is looking like a baby, it's an embryo, but the eyes are open and the baby is seeing this Brahmastra. You can see in this top right hand corner, Brahmastra is coming, and Lord Krishna in the Paramatma form, in his four-handed form. In Bhagavad Gita, we saw in the 11th chapter how Lord Krishna is none other than Lord Vishnu in the four-handed form, the Chaturbhuja form. In chapter 11, we saw that. So in that form, Lord Krishna is going and he battles. In this next picture, it is shown him battling, with his gada, and he's trying to stop and, the Brahmastra from taking effect. So now let us get right into the action sequence. And I said we will go through the precise action sequence of this whole thing. And there are 7 very beautiful verses, 6 very beautiful verses. This is from chapter 12 of Canto 1 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So from verse numbers 7 through 12, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And we will recite these verses, we will relish these. And the purpose, and today I have my son Gopal, my older son. He will recite these verses. I hope you're there, Gopal. I can't see all the people.
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, great. So we will have him recite this. And in the future, if any of you want to recite these verses, you can let me know. It is in this Kali Yuga, as we will see, this is the most fortunate opportunity to read and to be able to recite the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I just personally feel very fortunate that I am getting to read in such depth and do this preparation and all this for this discussion. It is, I just feel so blessed in immersing myself in the study of Srimad Bhagavatam in this little small way. So if any of you want to recite some verses, our format will be like, we'll share the story. Largely, we want to keep it. This is a very beginner level discussion. It's not a very deep discussion, and it's mainly for people who have had exposure, some exposure to Bhagavad Gita, and just at a beginner level, and want to appreciate and relish the wonderfulness, the beauty, the sweetness of Srimad Bhagavatam. So not one of those deep, very deep philosophical classes. A lot of story, a little bit of philosophy as well, to be able to see the key learnings of the Bhagavad Gita through the Srimad Bhagavatam. So as a part of that, we will be doing a lot of storytelling, some philosophical discussion, and some verse recitation, just to relish the sweetness of Srimad Bhagavatam. So if any of you are interested in that, you can let me know. It will require some preparation, reciting the verse in a particular meter and all that. You will see Gopal doing that. And there would be some sort of quality standards, so to say, expected. And then I might even request a sort of a preview of that before we kind of do it. So but if you're interested, it's a wonderful opportunity to recite the Srimad Bhagavatam. What's more beautiful than having the words of Srimad Bhagavatam on your tongue? So through this, we will see through these 6 verses, we will see the action sequence. Okay, Gopal, you can unmute yourself, and here we go. So we will go verse by verse and translation, and we will see the action sequence.
Matur garbhagato viraha satada bhrigunandana dadarsha purusham kanchid dayamanostra Can you read the translation, please?
You read it.
Okay, sure. O son of Bhrigu, Shaunaka, when the child Parikshit, the great fighter, was in the womb of his mother, Uttara, and was suffering from the burning heat of the Brahmastra thrown by Ashwatthama, he could observe the Supreme Lord coming to him.
Okay, so here the action starts. Maharaj Parikshit, he is still in the womb of his mother Uttara, and he is seeing the Brahmastra coming towards him, and or he was feeling the heat of the Brahmastra as it was coming towards him, and then he saw the darsha. The darsha means to see. Darsha, the Supreme Lord, the Purusha form of the Supreme Lord as the Paramatma coming towards him. And you can see here, this is Shaunaka, O son of Bhrigu, Matur Garbhagato Viraha. So, Satada Bhrigu Nandana. So, Bhrigu Nandana is Shaunaka Rishi, because Shaunaka Rishi is the son of the sage Bhrigu. And this is therefore a verse being spoken by Suta Gosvami. So this is why I explained that little bit of aspect. Suta Gosvami is speaking to Shaunaka Rishi at this time. So in this verse, he got the darshan of the Supreme Lord. Who? Parikshit Maharaj. Next.
Angushtamatram amalam Sfurat Purata Maulinam Apivya Darshanam Shyamam Tadid Vasasam Achyutam. He, the Lord, was only thumb high, but he was all transcendental. He had a very beautiful, blackish, infallible body, and he wore a dress of lightning yellow and a helmet of blazing gold. Thus he was seen by the child.
Great. So the child is seeing all this. It's not that the description of the Lord is being given by Suta Goswami just like that to the Rishis, that the Lord looks like this, but the child did not realize these aspects. That child also saw all these aspects, the beautiful, blackish, infallible body. He wore a yellow dress and a helmet of gold. So the child is seeing this, and to the child, the Lord was Angushta Matram, as big as a thumb, small size Lord he saw in the womb. Okay, next.
Srimad Dirgha Chatur Bahum Tapta Kanchana Kundalam Kshata Jaksham Gada Panim Atmanah Sarvato Disham Paribhramantam Ulkabham Brahmayantam Gadam Moho. The Lord was enriched with 4 hands, earrings of molten gold, and eyes blooded red with fury. As he loitered about, his club constantly encircled him like a shooting star.
Yeah, so you can see he was having a very nice appearance, but his eyes were red with fury, which means he was very angry. He was very angry because he was very angry at Ashwatthama. The Lord gets very angry when demons attack devotees. He knows that Parikshit Maharaj is a great devotee. Uttara is a great devotee. Both are great devotees. And Ashwatthama demon is trying to kill them, and he was very angry, just like Narsinghadev was very angry at Hiranyakashipu. So like that, he was encircling the embryo with the gada, with his mace or his club. Okay, next.
Astra tejasva gadaya niharam iva gopate vidha mantam sanikarshe paryakshata ka ityaso. The Lord was thus engaged in vanquishing the radiation of the Brahmastra, just as the sun evaporates a drop of dew. He was observed by the child, who thought about who he was.
So the beautiful part I like in this verse is just as the sun evaporates a drop of dew. So it wasn't very hard for the Lord to protect against the Brahmastra. It was just like, so it's not like the Lord and the Brahmastra were an equal match. Not at all. The Lord just vanquished the Brahmastra like the sun vanquishes a small drop of dew.
Vidhuyatan ameyatma Bhagavan dharma gub vibhuhu Mishato dashama sasya Tatrayarvantar dadhe harihi. While thus being observed by the child, the Supreme Lord, personality of Godhead, the super soul of everyone and the protector of the righteous, who stretches in all directions and who is unlimited by time and space, disappeared at once.
So he disappeared after protecting or after saving Parikshit Maharaj. He disappeared, and this is very important. So he disappears. He tatravan antardhe hari, antardhan ho gaye. You see, no, antardhan means he disappeared. So Parikshit Maharaj could not continue to see him. And that is significant because we will see a little later why that is significant. This abrupt disappearance of the Lord. Last verse.
Tatha sarva gunodarke sanukula grahodaye jagyevam shadhara pandor bhuya pandor ivaujasa. Thereupon, when all the good signs of the zodiac gradually evolved, the heir apparent of Pandu, who would be exactly like him in prowess, took birth.
Great, thank you. So that's the ending of this section. So hopefully you could relish the whole episode of how the Lord protected Parikshit Maharaj through these 6 verses, how he was circling the embryo with the gada, like a shooting star, it was written, and how he vanquished the Brahmastra like the sun vanquishes a drop of dew. And then he disappeared. So that's what happened. Okay, so let's come back. All right. So now Maharaj Parikshit is born. Like we read in the last verse, their heir apparent, the heir of the Pandavas, took birth. And then Maharaj Yudhishthir was present there. Arjuna was also present. All the Pandavas were present. They celebrated the birth of the newborn child because he is the new king. He is the prince and the only prince, and they have to protect him at all costs. So they did great celebration on his appearance or on his birth. And so many sages, so many pious people, so many saints, they came and they all glorified Parikshit Maharaj, the baby Parikshit. And among them were some very, very great astrologers who came, who could foretell the future, who could say the qualities of this boy. And all these have been described very, very nicely from this after the 12th verse in this chapter. So we read from 7 to 12th verse. So after the 12th verse, all the way up to the 30th, 32nd verse. So almost like 20 verses of qualities of Parikshit Maharaj are being described as foretold by these astrologers. So I'm going to just share with you some of them. We won't go through them verse by verse, but these are some of the things that the astrologers said. First of all, they said that he would be a great devotee of the Lord. He would be a wonderful, wonderful, pure devotee of Lord Krishna. And he would have all good qualities. He would be endowed with every single quality in the mode of goodness. And then he will be like King Ikshvaku. So if you remember from Bhagavad Gita in chapter 4, in the beginning, the little bit history of Bhagavad Gita is given, and a mention of Ikshvaku Maharaj is there. Who is Ikshvaku? He is the son of Manu, and Manu is the son of Vivishwan, the sun god. So that Manu, who is the son of the sun god Vivishwan, is Vaivashwata Manu, and his son was Ikshvaku, and he was a great king. And in that lineage, Lord Ram appears. So anyway, he's being compared to that King Ikshvaku, that he will be like a glorious king like King Ikshvaku. Then he's being glorified as Lord Rama, that he will be just like Lord Rama, who is a descendant in that dynasty of Maharaj Ikshvaku. And he will be the protector of all citizens. He will protect every citizen very nicely. Example is given of Maharaj Sibi. There was a King Sibi who was considered the greatest protector of all his citizens. I'll tell you that story. So these purports by Srila Prabhupada in the Srimad Bhagavatam for all these verses are just absolutely beautiful. I was going through them and I was like, this is absolutely amazing purports where stories are there, and all these things are very nicely given. Srila Prabhupada has expanded on each and every verse very nicely. So the story of Maharaj Sibi is like there was a, the demigods, the devatas wanted to test Maharaj Sibi. I'll just tell it in short. And they took the form of a pigeon and an eagle. Now, eagle is, as you know, he eats other animals. Eagle is kind of, like a tiger who eats other animals. Pigeon is, eats grains or other leaves or things. So one time a eagle caught a pigeon to eat, and the pigeon, or was trying to catch a pigeon to eat, and the pigeon was flying, running away from the eagle, and came to Maharaj Sibi and said, "You have to save me." And Maharaj Sibi said, "Sure, I'll save you." And then the eagle was chasing, and eagle said, "Well, he's my food. If I don't eat him, I'll go hungry. So you have to save me also. You can't just save this person." So then Maharaj Sibi was such a protector of his citizens. He said, "You are both citizens of my country. You are both in my shelter." So he said, "Instead of eating the pigeon, you eat my flesh." So he said, "I will give you as much flesh as the weight of the pigeon." So he gives that much flesh of his own body. And then he realizes that is not enough. The pigeon is heavier. So he gives some more flesh from his body, cuts off part of his body and gives it to the eagle. And still it turns out that the pigeon is heavier. Like that, he keeps giving, cutting his body and keeps giving to the eagle. And then finally he sees that something is going on here, something divine. He said, "I give my whole body, just take my whole body." And even then he is lighter than the pigeon. Imagine, like a person is lighter than a pigeon. So when the eagle and the pigeon, they saw that he is willing to give up his own life to protect his citizens, they took their original form. I can't remember. I think one of them was Indra, and one of them was Dharmaraj, Yamaraj, or I can't remember the exact one. Maybe one of you. I'm not very conversant with remembering the names and these little details. Like we said, the more important point is to focus on concepts rather than memorizing. But anyway, so they took their original form and they said, "Yes, we are very happy with you," and so on. And they blessed Maharaj Sibi. So Maharaj Sibi is considered to be the best protector of his citizens. So they're saying that Parikshit Maharaj will be just like Maharaj Sibi. Okay, we'll make more quick progress. He'll be famous like Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj, like the son of Dushyant and Shakuntala. And, that is the beginning of the dynasty of Bhishma Pitamaha and, the descendants of the Kurus. And he would be a great archer like Arjuna. He would be like Yudhishthira. He would be, and then they say you will be you will follow in the footsteps of Lord Krishna. You will be as good as Lord Krishna himself. The ultimate comparison was made. And then some more comparisons. He will be a great devotee like Bali Maharaj or like Prahlad Maharaj. Hopefully in one of the future sessions we will talk about, since this is a topics from Srimad Bhagavatam class, we will talk about Bali Maharaj, his glory. Bali Maharaj is the one who served Vaman Dev, who's considered typically the fifth avatar among the Dasha avatars. And Prahlad Maharaj, you all know, and so on. And even his death was predicted by the astrologers, that he will die by a snake bite, upon the curse of a Brahmana boy. So a Brahmana boy will come and curse him, and he will die out of a snake bite. So even that was predicted. Now everybody has to die one day or the other. So, how and when, it was not told, but the manner was told. So all this was going on. And now and then Yudhishthir Maharaj and all the elders, they very nicely gave gifts to all the saints, all the sages, fed them nicely, worshipped them, and then sent them away. So this was the birth of Parikshit Maharaj. Okay, so now we will we kind of so now one very, very important thing. Now they foretold one very other important. So all these qualities they told, all these qualities, he will be so great, such a great king, so righteous, so powerful, this, that, all these wonderful things were told. And they of course foretold his death. I think I have a slide where I just have I think this is important. So let me read the sharing. Yeah. So as you can see here, Maharaj Parikshit's death was also foretold in verses number 27 and 28. And these verses say, I will, for sake of time, I have just picked the translations. The manner of his death was the following: a very glorious death has been predicted already. After hearing about his death, so which means Parikshit Maharaj will hear about his death. He will know, oh, I'm going to die. So after hearing about his death, which will be caused by the bite of a snake bird, a sort of a flying reptile, snake bird, sent by the son of a Brahmana, he will get himself freed from all material attachment and surrender unto the personality of Godhead, taking shelter of him. So he will basically die in a very glorious way. And then the next verse is, after inquiring about proper self-knowledge from the son of Vyasadeva, who will be a great philosopher, he will renounce all material attachment and achieve a life of fearlessness. So which means he will meet his death with fearlessness, with no fear. And we will see in one of the subsequent verses what a glorious way to die is all about. However, so all this was foretold, but then a very, very, very glorious aspect was foretold, which was what will be his name. Or typically, we all have multiple names, we have so many names: Chintu, Pintu, Mantu, all this, one person has all these names, and then, whatever. So one person has so many names. And so Parikshit Maharaj, one of his names, but one of his very famous names will be Parikshit. And why is that going to be the name? And that is revealed in the next verse, in verse number 30. In this verse, I will try to recite, and we will read the translation. Very, very beautiful verse. This is one of the very important verses of this chapter. Sa esha loke vikhyataha Parikshiditi yat prabhu purvam drishtam anudhyayan pariksheta nareshvivaha. So the translation is,
yoga mat. Look at my yoga mat.
Kindly
Really
mute
nice.
It's my
yourself. The translation is, so his son would become famous in the world as Parikshit, examiner. So Parikshit means pariksha. Pariksha means to examine, right? To take an exam. That's pariksha. Because he would come to examine all human beings in his search after that personality whom he saw before his birth. So you remember, that is the significance. Thus, he would contemplate, he would come to constantly contemplate him with a capital H. So what is being said is that his name is Parikshit because after he is born, remember, he could see the Lord in the womb. And he saw this beautiful personality, and then that personality disappeared. And he was kind of a little sad. Oh my God, such a beautiful vision I was getting of this beautiful person, and he's now no longer there. And so after he's born, he goes on inspecting everyone. Is this that person? Is this that person? He's constantly searching for Krishna. In every face that he sees, he looks, is this Krishna? Is this Krishna? Is this Krishna? He's looking for Krishna everywhere, because Krishna could appear in front of anyone, especially in front of devotees, without a lot of warning or without a lot of, the Lord could appear. So whenever he meets anyone, he's trying to see Krishna in them, and he's trying to see, is he the same? Does he look like the same one I saw when I was in the womb? And what is the greatness about this? This is not some just facial recognition that he's trying to do, or this is not like trying to figure out, just trying to do pattern matching or anything like that. He is constantly trying to find Krishna. The greatest devotees of the Lord are always in search of Krishna. They are always thinking, when will I see Krishna? When will I see Krishna? And that is the greatest quality of the devotees. And that quality he was automatically demonstrating simply because he was looking for that person whom he saw when he was in the womb. So that's why it was foretold that his name will be Parikshit. And this was one of his greatest qualities, because this allowed him to think of Krishna all the time. That's what it is said. Thus, he would come to constantly contemplate him with a capital H. Now, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada has written a very wonderful thing. He is quoting Jiva Goswami here, and he is saying that because he had that experience in the womb, after coming out of the womb, he became so nicely Krishna conscious. He would think of Krishna all the time. This tells that how important it is for mothers who are carrying a baby in their womb to, now we cannot call Krishna and make the baby or in the womb see Krishna, but we can read Srimad Bhagavatam to the baby when the baby is in the womb. This is something that all mothers and fathers, expecting mothers and fathers, should absolutely do. Absolutely. And then the baby that is born would be a great, great devotee of the Lord. So, in preparation for inviting or for welcoming the baby, people do lamas and other things, all the checkups and ultrasounds. All that is fine. One must also read Srimad Bhagavatam and read it little loudly so that the baby can hear. We can feel the baby, the baby kicks and the mother can feel the baby in the womb. The baby is alive. And if you read loudly, the baby can hear. And one should not feel sad when, by chance the baby passes away. We don't know the past karma that the baby has brought. And sometimes, the baby's there's maybe a miscarriage, or maybe the baby may leave the world soon after being born. We don't know what kind of karma the baby is bringing, but by reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, we are definitely accelerating the baby's advancement towards his spiritual destination, the ultimate spiritual destination. So even if once the baby is born and leaves quickly, one should not think as it as a bad thing. Everybody has to die. Everybody has to die, including the baby that is being born. I totally get that it's very hard for somebody, we parents generally expect to die before the son or child dies. So, we want the child to outlive us. Parents want the child to outlive the parents. That would be a great thing. But sometimes the parents have to witness the pain or carry the burden of the pain of the child departing before them. And that is the pain that Uttara also had to carry. Uttara, the mother of Parikshit Maharaj, was very much alive when Parikshit Maharaj was going to leave the body. And it is given in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, another scripture written by Srila Sanatana Goswami. There it is described the glorious relationship, the aspect when Uttara, the mother, she was not listening to the conversation because the sages were there and all, and the women were inside. And so she was not directly listening the conversation between Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadeva Goswami. But at the end, on the 7th day, Uttara quietly approaches her son, Parikshit. Now she knows he's going to die, but she also knows that he has just heard the most beautiful thing ever to be heard. So she approaches her son, Parikshit, and asks her, tell me quickly everything that you have heard from Sukadeva Goswami. Such a wonderful thing you have heard. Why don't you tell me quickly? And Parikshit Maharaj tells her the Srimad Bhagavatam, the essence of, or in summary, he tells her everything that he has heard. So you can see that it is her son who is going to die. And she's not trying to save him or trying to get angry at God or trying to lament or cry, but she is a pure devotee of the Lord, and she is interested in hearing about the Lord even on the last day of departure of her son. So all these qualities come through constant practice of devotional service. One can understand that our life is temporary. The life of everybody around us, of our family and friends, is also temporary. And dhiras tatra na muhyati. One who is sober, one who understands this knowledge, does not get too disturbed. Of course, there is some disturbance, there is pain, but one should continue to focus on the instructions of the Lord through Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and this gives strength in tolerating the pain. I'm speaking all this because I know of a particular instance that just occurred in the past of this kind of a situation, and I just felt inspired to speak a little bit about this situation, where there was a mother who was very devotional, was reading the Krishna book to the baby, and the baby, happened to pass away. It's a very painful experience, but hopefully this gives some perspective. And one can take strength from this position of Mother Uttara. So this was the glory of Parikshit Maharaj. Now, let us transition into chapter 18 of this story. Sort of continues from chapter 12. Then there is a description in the middle of the life of Parikshit Maharaj, how he rules like a perfect king, and how he manages the kingdom, and little bit of his life is described and his character and all that. We will skip all that. We will probably come back to that at some time. But now we will continue the story of Parikshit Maharaj and how he got cursed to die. So we pick up at the beginning of 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the first canto. Now, again, in the first 23 verses, am I still screen sharing? Okay, I'll stop sharing because... So now in the first 23 verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam's 18th chapter of first canto, they are very glorious verses, but they are full of wonderful philosophy. I will quickly summarize that whole philosophy and then we will go to the story. So we will see it is 6:58 and we'll go for another 15 minutes and then we will do some Q&A and or any sharing or discussion if there is any, and then we will end at 7:30. So so the first 23 verses of chapter 18 are absolutely beautiful, and I will summarize those. They are like a precursor to the story of Parikshit Maharaj. So first of all, it starts with the glorious birth of Parikshit Maharaj, how gloriously he was born. Why was it a glorious birth? Because he saw Lord Krishna even before he was born. Such a glorious situation. He could directly get darshan of Lord Krishna before he was born. And the second aspect is after he was born, his consciousness was purely Krishna consciousness. He was trying to see Lord Krishna. He was trying to find Lord Krishna everywhere. He was completely surrendered to Lord Krishna. So throughout his life, he led a very, very Krishna conscious life. And then at the time of death was also very glorious because he surrendered himself to a pure devotee like Sukadeva Goswami. He was completely surrendered to such a pure devotee of the Lord, Sukadeva Goswami, what to speak of his gloriousness. And finally, in verse number 4, the next verse is described the glorious death. So let me share that. That is a very, very important verse, the fourth one. And that goes like this. This is describing the glorious death of Parikshit Maharaj. Nottama shloka vartanam jushatam tat kathamritam syat sambhramo antakalepi smaratam tad padambujam. So you can see here, this was so. What was so? Because or his death was so because those who have dedicated their lives to the transcendental topics of the personality of Godhead, of whom the Vedic hymns sing, and who are constantly engaged in remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, do not run the risk of having misconceptions even at the last moment of their lives. So basically, those who have engaged, Jushatam means those who have engaged their life in the Vartanam, in the Varta. Varta means, as you can understand, Varta means conversation or the discussions of whom? Of Uttama Shloka, of the Uttama Shloka. The Na Uttama Shloka means that those who have done this will not run the risk. So the Na is for that, but those who have engaged in the conversations of this Uttama Shloka and this Kathamritam of the Lord at the Antakala, at their last moment of their life, they do not have Sambhrama. Sambhrama means having a conception. Brahma means having a conception. Sambhrama means having a conception. Na in the beginning means no such conception they have, no misconception they have at the end of their lives, Antakale, and they are able to smaratam tad padam bhujam. They are able to remember the padam bhujam. Pad means feet, ambuj means lotus. The lotus-like feet of the Lord. So that is the glorious way to die, and that is how Parikshit Maharaj died. So if we live our lives hearing the Kathamritam, the Uttama Shloka Kathamritam, and we engage in that Varta, in that conversation then we will have no misconception, na sambhramam, no misconception, and we will be at the antakala time, at the last moment, and we will be able to remember smaratam padam bhujam, tat padam bhujam, the Supreme Lord's lotus feet we can remember. Now, as you all have read Bhagavad Gita, you can see a resemblance of this verse. Which verse does this remind you of from the Bhagavad Gita? Anybody?
Antakale cha mameva smaranam mukta kalevaram.
Aage, next. Finish it.
I forgot the second part.
Okay, anyone? Yah prayati samadbhavam samchayaha, yati natras nastatra sanchayaha. So one who leaves the body, antakale cha mam eva, one who leaves mam eva smarana. So one who leaves by remembering me, muktva kalevaram, he is liberated and he does not come back into this world and he attains my nature. So this is 8.6, the 6th verse of the 8th chapter, or the 5th or 6th, I can't remember, one of those two. So this is the practical demonstration of that verse which we read in Bhagavad Gita by Parikshit Maharaj. This is how he leaves his body. So that is the description of that. And then in the 5th and 6th verse, in the next two verses, it is described the entrance of Kali, how formidably Kali Maharaj, Parikshit Maharaj stopped Kali from advancing into the planet. He stopped Kali's advance and he tried to do that for as long as he lived. And Kali arrived right on the day when Lord Krishna departed. Right after the departure, that very day, Kali arrived. He was waiting for Lord Krishna to depart so that he can come and contaminate the world with all the bad qualities. And Parikshit Maharaj, took up the cause of keeping Kali at bay. But there is a great quality. This is one of the verses which when I read it several years ago, I can't remember when, I was shaken up in my heart. This is a very, very, very important verse which you should remember. And this is the 7th verse of the chapter, an extremely important verse. You will see why I'm saying that. So, you might have, you might have read that, if you do something bad, the law of karma is that if you do something bad, same thing will happen to you, right? That is the law of karma. And also, if you think something bad, it also results in some karma. And that is true. You can do karma through thought as well. But in the Kali Yuga, there is a special sanction, a special, discount that is given. Kali Yuga is, and Parikshit Maharaj therefore did not completely kill Kali. He could have killed Kali and Kali Yuga would never have arrived. But he knew that Kali Yuga has one great quality. And one of the great qualities of Kali Yuga is that good things, you can get the benefit of good things just by thinking about them. So you think, oh, I will help this person. I want to do good to this person. That is as good as doing good to the person. Now, there is more benefit in actually doing it. So please don't think, oh, I'll only think of doing good things, but never actually do. You don't think, oh, I will donate $1 billion to the temple. And you don't even donate $1. That should not be the case. But the quality of Kali Yuga is, even if you think good things, you get the reaction. But for bad things, you must do them. Simply by thinking bad things, you do not get any reaction. You have to actually do. Because in Kali Yuga, we all think of doing so many bad things to somebody else. But there is this discount. We have a time where we can think whether we really want to go through with our sinful thoughts and convert them to action. And if we don't convert it to action, you are saved. Oh, great. I thought about it. I didn't do it. Thank God I'm saved. But good things, you do get the benefit even if you think about them. What a great quality of Kali Yuga. This quality is not present in any other yoga. It's only of Kali Yuga. There is this disparity. Kali Yuga provides that discount between thinking good things and thinking bad things. It's not treated equally. So we'll see the verse. Na anudveshti kalim samrat saranga iva sarabhuk kushalanya ashu siddhyanti netarani kritani yat. So the translation is Maharaj Parikshit was a realist, and that's why he didn't kill Kali. So he was a realist, like the bees who only accept the essence of a flower. He knew perfectly well that in this age of Kali, auspicious things produce good effects immediately, even if you think about them. That's not what is written, but that's what it means. Whereas inauspicious acts must be actually performed to render effects. So he was never envious of the personality of Kali. So this is right there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. A very beautiful quality of Kali Yuga is mentioned here. So, you can take solace in this activity. If you just thought bad things, no problem. Just don't do them. Of course, you should try not to think of it as well, because someday or the other, when you keep thinking, it will translate into action. But so you must work on our thoughts as well. But you can take solace that, okay, saved. I got saved in the nick of time. And then, this description finishes. Then we go into another great description. I'm sorry, I don't know why this is so important. I thought I should go into it. Let's see. And then there are absolutely another set of glorious verses after this section, which are glorifying the Suta Gosvami. So this is why I mentioned that other place. The sages of Naimisaranya are now glorifying Suta Gosvami. So this whole conversation is occurring in that setting of Suta Gosvami and the sages of Naimisaranya, the thing that happened later, the second speaking of Srimad Bhagavatam between Suta Goswami, where Suta Goswami was the speaker, not Sukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj, but Suta Goswami to Shaunaka and the other Rishis. So they are glorifying Suta Goswami now. So this conversation is happening in that setting. And this is where they said, "Oh, Suta Goswami, you came here. What a wonderful arrival. What a God-sent opportunity. We want to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from you. We are going to set aside this whole fire yajna that we were about to do, and let's hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Please tell us what you heard." So that discussion was happening, and one beautiful verse, very important verse there is this one, which again, for sake of time, I will just read the translation. They say that the value of a moment's association, a small moment of association with the devotee of the Lord, cannot be compared to the attainment of heavenly planets or liberation from matter. What to speak of the worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity, which are for those who are meant for death. So basically, this is saying, what's the point of doing all that fire sacrifice and everything when instead of doing that, we can associate with you. We can associate and hear from you, Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is showing the glory of associating with a pure devotee, and about hearing the topics of Krishna are far superior than any other kind of yajna. That is the point. And then in one of the other verses that follow, number 15, the three things are being glorified. Remember this picture? This picture, our famous picture. We said three things in this picture. Remember, the listener, the speaker, and the topic. being discussed between the two people. Those are the three important things, so to say, in this picture. And all those topics are being covered in this verse. So Shaunaka Rishi is saying to Suta Gosvami, he's saying, "Oh Suta Goswami." So I have colored it in three different colors: red, green, and blue. The three things. The first one is the speaker, the glories of the speaker. The green, or the second one, is the glories of the topic between them. And the third one is the quality of the listener, the characteristic of the listener. So let's see. So first one is the speaker. "O Suta Goswami, you are a learned and pure devotee of the Lord, because the personality of Godhead is your chief object of service." So who can speak? One who is learned and a pure devotee. Just being learned is no good. You must hear from one who has read and learned, but also a pure devotee. And we are hearing this Srimad Bhagavatam from Srila Prabhupada, from Srila Prabhupada's version. I'm just trying to repeat. So in effect, we are listening from Srila Prabhupada, and he's a pure devotee. So Srila Prabhupada is also, we can see Srila Prabhupada in these red words. Then the topic, "Therefore, please describe to us the pastimes of the Lord, which are above all material conception." So the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam are transcendental. They are not material, they are spiritual. And that is the beauty of Srimad Bhagavatam. It has no tinge of materialism or material sense gratification. Everything of Srimad Bhagavatam is purely spiritual. That is about the topic. So please describe to us these topics of the pastimes of the Lord, for we are very anxious to receive such messages. Anxiety to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam is the characteristic of the listener. This should be our mood. This was the mood of Parikshit Maharaj, and this was the mood of Shaunaka Rishi, who are anxious to listen from Suta Goswami, and this should be our mood as well when we are trying to listen Srimad Bhagavatam. We should be anxious to hear, not miss a word. With rapt attention, we should try to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam. So these are the qualities given. So there are more beautiful things, but we don't have time to go through them. So we will continue. We'll continue with the story. It's 7:15. But let me ask, are there any questions? And I want to keep it to simple questions. This is not a very deep philosophical class. It's a very simple level, introductory level discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam as a natural progression from Bhagavad Gita. So for those people who are newer or who didn't have much exposure to these topics, primarily I want to give them the opportunity to see if there are questions. And if there are no questions, we will continue forward with the story of Parikshit Maharaj.
So Prabhuji, I had a question.
Yes.
So basically on the last class, so Krishna asks Arjuna to kill Ashwatthama, right? But Arjuna somehow in his wisdom does not obey. So that it turns out it's the wrong decision in all fronts, right? I mean, Ashwatthama is condemned to a perpetually bad life. The attack happens on the womb. So what is the lesson out of that incident?
Yes, beautiful question. So it's a very deep question, actually. The thing is, if you remember, there was a word harshitam. I think the Lord was a little smiling, trying to test Arjuna. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in one of the verses, it is written that the Lord was actually trying to take a pariksha. The word pariksha is also there. He was trying to test Arjuna as to what he does. So Lord Krishna is the perfect master, and Arjuna is the perfect disciple. What is the quality of a perfect disciple? A perfect disciple is who can read between the lines of the instructions of the master. Okay? So like when in a case of a servant, when the master is hungry, the master doesn't need to say, I am hungry. Just by looking at his facial expressions, the servant realizes, oh, my master is hungry or thirsty, and he brings him a glass of water. So that is the quality of a perfect servant. Similarly, the quality of a perfect disciple is to understand the intent of the spiritual, of the master. And Lord Krishna is the master or the guru of Arjuna, as we saw in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. So he clearly understood the Lord didn't want him to kill, as in like fully kill Ashwatthama. And Lord Krishna also says in one of the verses, you must satisfy Draupadi, who is actually arguing for forgiving Ashwatthama. Draupadi, Yudhishthir Maharaj, they were all on one side. Bhima was on the other side with Krishna, saying, let's kill him. But really, Krishna also was not saying that. So yes, Arjuna fulfilled, he understood Lord Krishna's desire, and he came up with a great sort of a action forward, which satisfied both and which pleased Lord Krishna. So Lord Krishna was fully pleased with that. Now this whole thing, now yes, of course, Ashwatthama was kind of left alone, and then he happened to shoot the next Brahmastra, and all those things technically could have been avoided if he was killed. But look at what came out of it. What came out of that whole thing was the complete surrender of Uttara to Lord Krishna, first of all. She was faced with a calamity and she took the shelter of Lord Krishna. Then Parikshit Maharaj had such a glorious birth where he could see Krishna in the womb. And then when he took birth, he would go searching for Krishna everywhere. So only good came out of it. It is our material contaminated thinking where we want to live in this so-called comfortable life, in our sort of protected bubble where nobody should, threaten us even a little bit. And it is a complete misconception. It is an illusion that we have this protective bubble around us where nobody will come and touch us. You can build the wall, as much as you want. The virus, for example, doesn't care for your stupid wall. It may prevent your Mexican whatever, druggists and whatever you can call it from coming in. It won't prevent the virus from coming in, as some of our politicians say. I'm just trying to repeat some of those sort of words in sarcasm. So we think we are so protected in our bubble. We have all the walls around us to protect us. No, that is an illusion. The material world will attack us. So the thing that is being exemplified, that is being glorified here, is the devotion, is the good that comes out of that by surrendering to Krishna, and not the fact that Brahmastra was fired and all those things. The Lord is there to protect the devotees. One should not think that, oh, for my pleasure, to protect me, to create my bubble, let me kill him. So hopefully that clarified.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Very good question. Okay, we will continue with our story of Parikshit Maharaj. And if there are questions, please feel free to unmute and say, or you can raise your hand in the Zoom feature, not like in your video. I might not see the video, but in your Zoom, if you raise your hand, you can ask a question as well. So then we fast forward to Parikshit Maharaj's, so to say, his curse. So one time when he was the king, the Pandavas had departed. They installed Parikshit Maharaj as the king. He ruled for a great time, very wonderful, almost like Lord Ram, like a Ram Rajya. He ruled and all that. And one time he was in the forest and he was very hungry, very thirsty. And he was a little, so to say, cranky. when we get very hungry and all that, we get cranky. So I call it hangry, angry, and when there is hunger, there is anger. So, I get hangry, when I'm hungry, I get hangry. So he was kind of like that, and he was searching for water. And as he was searching for water, he saw this hermitage, this ashram of a sage, and it happened to be the ashram of sage Shamika. There is the sage by the name Shamika, very, very advanced level sage. And he, when Parikshit Maharaj arrived, he was, sage Shamika was absorbed in his dhyana, in his, can you all hear me?